Crime Boss Rockay City is an ambitious first-person shooter set in the vibrant, crime-ridden metropolis of Rockay City. And at first glance, it boasts a star-studded cast in an immersive 90s-inspired world. However, if you've been following the game since its release like I have, you'll know it has attracted a fair share of negative attention. Despite this, the game has received numerous updates and even launched on Steam. So I asked myself, is this game really that bad? Let's find out. The first thing I need to point out, and I just want to mention, is that the name of the game sounds like one of those bad mobile games that always pops up, and it has those fake ads where like you start as like a level 1 gangster and then you become a level 100 mob boss, something like that. That's what it sounds like when I hear the name. Like I just hear that and I just think fake mobile game ads for some reason. And I feel like if they just got rid of Crime Boss and just went with Rockay City, it might have been a bit better. But something about Crime Boss Rockay City, it just doesn't sound like it's gonna be good automatically. When you dive into Crime Boss Rockay City, it quickly becomes clear that the gameplay is where the game shines the most, and the core loop of planning and executing heists, managing your gang, and expanding your territory is engaging and offers a satisfying mix of strategy and action. And you'll want to manage your army, because if some of your army dies, your total army goes down. But when you use your army, so if you like use 10 soldiers, then let's say you use 10 soldiers, 8 of them survive, then you have 8 soldiers, but 8 soldiers are resting, 2 of them die, so now you're down 2 soldiers, and you can't use those 8 soldiers that you just used until the next day because they have to rest. So you want to hire as many soldiers as possible and use as many soldiers as you need, but don't use too many soldiers is what I'm saying. You gotta kind of make it a little bit strategic, because if you waste your soldiers and you either don't put enough and they end up dying, or you just use too many, you won't be able to claim as many territories or defend as many territories as you might need to. And then also, because they have to rest, you have to wait until the next day to use your entire army again. But each day that progresses the investigation, which gets closer to losing. I feel like I say things in the longest way possible too, and I have no idea why I do that. Each heist feels distinct with different objectives, layouts, and challenges that keep the experience fresh. Whether you're robbing a bank, breaking into a warehouse, or taking down a rival gang stronghold, the game does a good job of keeping you engaged. I just like some of the levels more in this game than I do the levels in Payday 3. Some of the levels in Payday 3 just feel a bit lifeless, and I know most of the levels in Payday 3 are a bit bigger than the levels that are in this game, but every level that I play in Crime Boss Rockay City, or at least most of them, not when it's like that warehouse or the docks or something, but when it's like some stores, some jewelry stores, a hotel, a bank, something like that, for some reason they just feel like they have more charm to them than what Payday 3 currently has. I like the level design in this game, and I think most of the levels are well crafted, and I like the look of the levels, and I like that most of the levels that you play in the game, you can either go in loud or you can go in stealth. But I do have a negative here, and that is stealthing sometimes just feels impossible. Not only do you not have the right equipment for stealth, it seems, all the time when you're playing at least the story mode, and I feel like there's not as much stealth equipment as there is loud equipment. And also sometimes it just feels unfair, because you'll be doing, in the story mode at least, you'll be doing a mission way later in the game, and you can only take out a certain amount of cameras or a certain amount of guards, like in Payday 3 and Payday 2, but there's just sometimes you go in there and then there's like 20 guards. There's 20 guards in a warehouse. How are you supposed to get past and get around 20 guards in one warehouse stealthy when there's cameras and there's 20 guards? So I think this game has good variety in the actual heist. So when there's actually a heist to do, good variety. But I think it lacks variety when you're doing turf wars. And I know there's like a bunch of different, or at least there's different maps when you're doing the turf wars and you're defending your territory based on the territory. But it just feels a bit samey. Every time I do one, a turf war or something, I try to take over an enemy turf, it just feels like I'm always in the same areas over and over again. The shooting mechanics and the gunplay are pretty solid and feel satisfying for the most part. Weapons have a decent amount of kick, they feel different, and the gunplay is responsive. But my main gripe about the weapons is there needs to be more feedback, I feel like, when hitting enemies. And I know there's a bunch of blood when you're shooting enemies, and it's like a blood explosion, even though I feel like there could be even more blood. I mean, but hey, that's just me. I like a lot of blood when shooting enemies, and that's going to sound very bad now that I think about it, but I feel like there should be more sound effects when you hit enemies, especially headshots. It just feels like there's not enough sound effects, and the guns when shooting them, they feel good, but when you hit an enemy, it doesn't feel meaty, it doesn't feel juicy, you know what I'm saying? It just doesn't have that last final touch. It feels like when you get a headshot in Payday 2, it feels satisfying. When you get a headshot in Call of Duty, it feels satisfying. When you get a headshot in Battlefield, it feels extra satisfying. When you get a headshot in this game, it doesn't feel as satisfying. That's all I gotta say. But overall, the combat experience is enjoyable. The game features a bunch of different weapons with their own unique feel, and whether you're mowing down enemies with the assault rifle or picking them off with the sniper, the combat is consistently entertaining, even if it could use a bit more sound effects for headshots and body shots. Shooting enemies in this game is pretty fun, and if you mess that up in a shooter game, it's kind of bad. Crime boss Rockay City tries to blend the heist mechanics of Payday with more roguelike elements in its story mode, and arguably that's where this game shines the most, where you play as Travis Baker, a supposed criminal mastermind starting his own gang with the goal of taking over the city, even though sometimes when you're playing the game and watching the cutscenes, he doesn't seem all that much like a mastermind, to be honest. The gameplay revolves around turf battles and heist. So you do heist to get money and like your products and stuff. Not products, but like loot. You go there and you get loot. And what I mean by that is you do heist and you do these missions, and the loot you acquire isn't just money. You do earn money, but it also includes drugs, luxuries, gems, electronics, and precious metals, which, unlike Payday, the loot you acquire isn't just money. So it has all those different categories, and you can stockpile them, and you can choose whether or not you want to, stash them for longer, or you can sell the items, and it kind of adds like a strategic element that keeps you a bit more engaged between the heists, and you can hold on to certain items until their market value peaks, and then you can sell it, or you can, at certain points in the story, you can, instead of spending your money, you can spend like your luxuries or your gems or your electronics to get advantages during some of your bigger heists. And this game has you manage your gang, and at first I thought it was going to add a bit more depth to the gameplay as you progress, because you can recruit new members, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, and you can decide who to bring along on a heist and how to allocate your resources, and there can be a difference. I was thinking there would be more of a difference between you losing or you succeeding based on who you recruit and stuff, but I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really experience that. You hire some people, they're on your team and you can use them, but I didn't really find that some people added more than other people. Like, sure, there is like some rare people that start with better weapons automatically, but I didn't feel like some of the worst, what are considered worst characters, I didn't feel like that held me back at all, because I had them on my team and they seemed to do just fine, and I played as some of them sometimes, so I don't know. I thought it would add more depth to the gameplay, but it was kind of like it was there, but it didn't really feel like it made a difference who I hired, to be honest. I just kind of hired people based on what weapon they had and if I would like to use that weapon. The roguelike elements in the story mode, I feel like they add another layer of fun. Each run being different, just slightly different, with varying levels of difficulty and random events that will keep you surprised. You also unlock permanent upgrades as you level up, such as reduced prices, increased earnings, and they add a sense of progression that makes each new attempt feel more rewarding than the previous one, and the tension of knowing that each day brings you closer to the detectives completing their investigation adds a sense of urgency, and it tries to make your decisions feel meaningful, because if you do a heist and you fail it, or you waste some time during the day, like you do something that you really didn't need to do during that day, or you forget about this mission that you needed to do that day and you fail it, then you progress on to the next day and it feels like you wasted that day, and the investigation may progress, but you may have not made any progress. So your goal is to take over the whole city, take over the whole map, make it all your territory. So I feel like if you get pushed back, you lose a territory, and you don't take any territory during a single day, you haven't really made much progress. However, the story mode has its flaws and issues, particularly the dialogue and the voice acting, and that's where most of the hate for this game has come from, is the voice acting. Everyone always talks about how bad the voice acting is, and for the most part, 90 to 95% of the voice acting is pretty bad. I mean, you got performances like Chuck Norris, who apparently just took the money and didn't put any effort in it whatsoever. I mean, he probably did his lines once, and that was it. I mean, some people have described it as feeling lackluster, but I don't even think it was lackluster. I think that a lot of these actors, they didn't put much effort into voicing the lines, but even if they did, the lines are poorly written. The dialogue is just poorly written. So even if they did put effort into it, the dialogue itself would just drag it down further into the ground, in its own grave, where it should be. There was only one cutscene in the entire game that genuinely made me laugh, and it was due to something incredibly simple, possibly stupid. I'm not really sure why it made me laugh, but it did manage to make me laugh, so that has to count for something.
Baker, I'm downtown.
Congratulations, Sarah, and why the fuck do I care?
I've found a location of note.
You mean like a place, like a club?
Something of a more personal nature.
I mean, that's really the biggest issue. Well, that's really the biggest issue that everyone talks about in this game, is the bad story, the bad voice acting. And when I say bad voice acting, if those of you that haven't seen the voice acting in this game or heard the voice acting in this game, I'm just gonna play a few clips for you so you can get a sense of the voice acting and the dialogue in this game.
How? How can the Rocky Money Express be hit in full daylight?
Sir, they hid it inside the city. Our information was...
Wrong. Yellow is not even the guy, right?
Right, sir. We think it was Baker. We saw his guy Nasara outside on a camera.
Close, but no cigar. We need hard evidence. Mr. Baker is smart.
Yes, sir.
He is sitting on a boatload of cash.
Yeah, boatload, sir.
Awesome fucking job.
Wow, this was unexpected.
Wasn't no walk in the fucking park.
Morning, handsome.
I'll break out the bubbly.
Well, now let's see what these dragon dogs can fetch, huh?
Gloves?
Time to tangle, T.
They flew helicopters inside my city
Well, the air marshals and us, we disagree on...
and airlifted the treasure straight through a skylight?
The inner city should be a no-fly zone.
Twice?
Baker is good, sir.
He is bad. Bad.
We need to consider the air marshal's request.
We need to consider what happens now. The family will sue. Khan will be chasing Baker. Baker will somehow come out on top with cash, won't he?
Yes, sir. Now, the air marshals say they should protect the...
Sky, fucking sky, you motherfucker.
Now the next thing I want to talk about is the AI, and I kind of want to call out IGN a little bit here because in their review of this game in particular, they criticized the team AI, but in their Payday 3 review, they praised the team AI as being greatly improved. Yet in Rockay City, your AI team actually helps you and can do things that they can't do in Payday 3. Like, for example, in Rockay City, you can command your team to do things like loot. In fact, you don't even have to command them because they'll just start helping you pick up the loot and throw it in the van. Whereas Payday 3, you can try to command them all you want, but they don't seem to do anything that you want them to do. So my thing is, like, IGN said Rockay City had bad team AI and bad AI in general, but then they say Payday 3 has greatly improved AI. I mean, that is just crazy. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of Payday. I played Payday the Heist, Payday 2, and Payday 3, and IGN gave Payday 3 a 7 out of 10 at launch, and they gave Crime Boss Rockay City a 4 out of 10 at launch, and I don't know how, because Payday 3, the AI was, the team AI, not as useful. The AI in general was kind of bad. And then in Payday 3, they didn't even bother to make 3D cutscenes, 3D animated cutscenes. Most of it was like slideshows of art. And at least this game put in the effort to make some 3D animated cutscenes. And on top of that, has good team AI. But let's not forget here that Crime Boss is $20, while Payday 3 is $40 minimum, double the price. While Payday 3 is a bit more polished in certain areas, like the voice acting for example, and the gunplay, Crime Boss just brings you more over-the-top fun than Payday 3 does at the moment. And currently on Steam, this game, Crime Boss, sits at mostly positive, where Payday 3 still, to this day, sits at mostly negative. Now, the roguelike mode / story mode is the main experience that this game has to offer, but this game also has multiplayer where you can choose a heist to play with some friends or a random sequence of heist, and you level up, you earn cash, you buy new characters to play as, and you get new tools and new guns to customize your loadout the way that you want. It's not as in-depth in that area as Payday 2 or even Payday 3, but it is there, and there is a good amount of stuff to customize your loadout and pick the character that you want, and characters can have different skins that you unlock in the roguelike mode, and you can play the missions that you want. Overall, Crime Boss Rockay City, I feel like it excels in just delivering a fun experience. Despite all of its flaws in the story and the voice acting and bits and pieces of the gameplay, I feel like the game with its roguelike elements, it'll just keep you coming back for more. Whether you're a fan of heist games or just looking for something different in the first-person shooter genre, the game delivers a fun and sometimes chaotic experience that I feel is worth playing. And in my opinion, this game is kind of like a B-movie. It's just bad in some areas, maybe even intentionally. In this case, it's the story and the voice acting, and some parts of the gameplay, but mainly the story and the voice acting. And I feel like this game's focus is on just providing you a good time, and the game's not to be taken too seriously. And in that respect, I think it succeeds. And with all that said, let's go back to the question that I asked at the beginning of the video. Do I think Crime Boss Rockay City is that bad? I don't actually. In fact, I think if you're a fan of Payday and you haven't given this game a try because of all the negative attention it received, I think you should give it a try. And you know what? You might just have some fun. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video, so hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to hit that like button. Leave a comment below, tell me what you think about this game and this video. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because you want to be subscribed. And I'll see you next time.